Okay, we'll start the meeting. Evening, everyone. This is the Public Service and Transportation Subcommittee meeting for January 22nd, 2026. My name is Robert Bellata. To my left is Councillor John Frizzolo. To my right is Councillor Luis Ojeda for District 3 and District 4, respectively. And so we'll just do a roll call. Councillor Ojeda?
Here.
Councillor Frizzolo?
Here.
I'm here. And we'll just move on to approval of the minutes.
Through the chair, if you'd like me to do a roll call vote, I certainly can.
Okay, sure. Yeah, we'll do a roll call vote on that.
Perfect. Councillor Ojeda?
Here.
Councillor Frizzolo?
Here.
And Chairperson Councillor Bellata?
Yes, here. Great. And then we're going to move on to item 3A, miscellaneous communication of Paul Matthews, Executive Director and CEO of the Worcester Regional Research Bureau, transmitting Express for Whom, ridership, recovery, and the importance of the Worcester-Framingham line. I'd like to welcome Paul Matthews and Josh from the Worcester Regional Research Bureau. Thank you. Feel free to, you can come up or...
Through the chair, if I may,
yes.
prior to beginning, is it okay if I read the virtual attendee call-in information?
Yes, sorry.
Great. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, and in order to ensure active public engagement, the City of Worcester currently allows for both in-person and remote participation at all City Council and Standing Committee meetings. To partake in the meeting, you may attend the meeting in person here in the Levi Lincoln Chamber at City Hall, or follow the link on the City's website to join via Zoom or dial the direct line. If you join a Zoom meeting by dialing in with a phone number, you can raise your hand by dialing *9. The Zoom phone number for the Public Service and Transportation Committee meeting is 1-646-828-7666. The access code is 161-379-0984.
Thank you, Claire.
All right. Through the chair, I want to thank the committee for this opportunity. For those of you watching at home, my name is Paul Matthews. I'm a lifelong city resident, and I'm here in my capacity as Executive Director and CEO of the Worcester Regional Research Bureau. Our organization is 40 years old. We're a nonprofit organized for the express purpose of conducting objective data-based research. So we're here to talk about a report we released in June called Express for Whom? Ridership, Recovery, and the Importance of the Worcester-Framingham Line. Don't mind. Thank you, Claire, for serving as our able enabler on the PowerPoint. So the Research Bureau serves the public interest of Greater Worcester by conducting independent, nonpartisan research and analysis on a wide range of public policy issues to promote informed public debate and decision-making. So our reports really have two audiences, and I want to note that. One is the three of you sitting on the other side of this table, and the city administration and legislators and the state, and the other is the public at large. We think it's really important that the public understand the complexity of some of the policy issues all of you are dealing with as elected officials. So you can see here, we collect and analyze objective and credible data. The real issue here is there's plenty of data online, but not all of it is credible, not all of it is objective. So what we've done with this report is utilize data from a wide range of sources, including the federal level and state level, to do an analysis on commuter rail. And before I turn it over to my colleague, Josh Boucher, who's our Senior Research Associate and the author of the report and also a city resident, I do want to just add, the Bureau has a long and storied history on commuter rail. The Bureau did a report back over 25 years ago called From the Heart of the Hub from the Heart of the Commonwealth to the Hub of the Universe. And that report really was pivotal. At the time, I was working in the legislature, and it was really pivotal at helping sell the state on further investment in the Worcester line because it documented the need and the potential ridership and economic value. So through COVID, there was not really an opportunity to do a credible, objective current analysis of ridership because commuter rail was so heavily impacted. Fortunately, and I need to thank the state for this, they commissioned station boarding analysis and station boarding data collection in the fall of 2024, and that was released late winter, early spring in 2025. And so my colleague Josh did a tremendous job conducting an analysis he'll be sharing. This was also done in coordination with the City MBTA Task Force on commuter rail. So we serve on that task force. It was convened by the mayor and the manager, and we have been coordinating with that committee as well as the legislators and other stakeholders up and down the line. We have presented on this report to the 495 partnership, as well as in Alston. We were asked to come in by the state to talk to the Alston Multimodal Project Working Group and brief them on the importance of commuter rail service. They professed great interest in riding our commuter rail west to the city of Worcester to go to the Woosocks and see shows at the Palladium and our other venues. So we've been very gratified by the level of interest in this report up and down the corridor and here within the city by major stakeholders. So on that point, I want to turn over to Josh to present to you on the findings in the report and the key analysis demonstrating the importance of the Worcester-Framingham line.
Thank you, Paul, for the introduction and for introducing the report. I just want to start off by saying that overall ridership is really strong on the Worcester-Framingham line. It is consistently the second most ridden commuter rail line of the 14. And onboardings between Worcester and Framingham in fall 2024 were really, really strong, so we'll see that a little bit later. But I want to start this off by just kind of talking about the commuter rail system overall. So, like I said, there are 14 commuter rail lines, north side and the south side. And between all 14 in 2024, there are a little over 29 million riders, of which we'll see in a few slides, about 4 million of those were from the Worcester-Framingham line. I like to joke whenever I bring up this slide that the graph is going to look the same for basically everything related to the pandemic, that V-shaped recovery. And you see that here, the ridership was actually going down pre-pandemic, and it is now above pre-pandemic levels. Monthly ridership is kind of trending back to the trend from before the pandemic as well. Next slide, please. A lot of this is buoyed by weekend ridership in the system. So if you look at the, I know it's hard to see here, but it may be probably easier to see on your printouts, the trend line in weekend ridership from before the pandemic to afterwards. Weekend ridership is way, way, way up. So it makes up 10 to 20% of overall ridership on the commuter rail now. And a lot of that is probably due to the $10 pass. If you've ridden the commuter rail on the weekend, you can buy one $10 pass that lets you get onto any of the commuter rail lines as many times as you want for the course of the weekend. And that's way cheaper. That is a way better deal than the $25 it costs for a round-trip ticket on a weekday. So $10 pass, great deal. As we'll see a little bit later, also the commuter rail is a little bit more frequent on the weekends, has a more consistent schedule, and there's about one more train, at least on the Worcester line, compared to pre-pandemic as well. Next slide, please. So just kind of zooming in on Worcester line ridership. Like I said, Worcester-Framingham is the second most ridden line in the system after Providence. And I also just want to say, if you're looking at the MBTA data, they call it the Framingham-Worcester line, which I don't think is correct. So we're going to call it Worcester-Framingham here. But throughout 2024, the line averaged about 14,000 riders a day on weekdays. And this chart here just shows the estimated yearly boardings. Providence is way above Worcester. Almost 2 million more riders in 2024, but Worcester is, I think, continuing to go up, and we'll probably see it continue to increase. Most of the ridership recovery is due to weekday riders, but the weekend ridership is a large proportion of the total ridership. Let's go to the next slide, please. And so this is just an example of how the schedule has been adjusted from pre-pandemic to post, from May 2019 to May 2024. And if we look at the weekend ridership, There's one more additional weekend train departing at a regular interval, so 5:10, 7:10, 9:10, so it's easy for people to remember this is when the train is departing. On weekends in 2024, sorry, on weekdays in 2024, only 4 trains had more than an hour wait until the next train arrived, compared to 8 in 2019. And we are actually going to see this number increase even more. Maybe this year, it's unclear, but the MBTA is currently working on Worcester, what they call Worcester 3030, so a train every 30 minutes departing from Union Station. So that'll be a big jump in the number of trains. Currently, you have around 22 trains leaving a day from Worcester. That's going to jump a lot. And so we'll probably see the ridership numbers increase as well. To head off any questions, I don't think that'll change really like the speed of the train, but we will see more trains all day. Let's go. Perfect. So just looking at the weekend ridership, weekend boardings are not necessarily in total numbers as strong as the next 2 lines in the system, so Providence and then the Newburyport-Rockport lines. Newburyport-Rockport has a big advantage on the weekends that Worcester doesn't have, which is that Salem is on the line. And so if you look at the spikes, those are all October numbers on the orange line, so people are going to Salem. But if you look at how much weekend riders make up of the total ridership, the proportion on the Worcester line, it is frequently in second overall, sometimes even higher than Providence and sometimes higher than the entire system when you look at the entire system. So pretty impressive numbers of ridership on weekends from the Worcester line. One thing I'll point out about the weekend ridership is that there aren't any express trains on the weekend. So if you get on the train on a weekend, it is the full 1.5 to 2 hour ride every single departure time. So that might stymie some of the riders that we could otherwise have. Okay. Average Saturday ridership in 2024 was often a large percentage of average weekday ridership. In some months, Saturday ridership was more than 50% of a weekday. Which is really impressive when you consider that all day long, both inbound going to South Station and outbound going to Union Station, there were only 20 trains a day on the weekend. There are 55 going inbound and outbound combined on a weekday, so there's less than half, but had about half the amount of riders. So a really large number of people taking advantage of the train on the weekend. Reliability is way up. I don't have the numbers here on this, but if you look in the full report, reliability is way better on the weekend and on weekdays. There are more trains that are more days that are 90% or more reliable. That's trains arriving and departing within 5 minutes of the scheduled time, compared to the pre-pandemic period that I have here, January 2016. Through the 2020, and then I think I did 2020, 2024 in the report. There's a much better, much more reliable train than there was previously. And I know that also there had been in 2016 like problems with slippery rail, that's like leaves falling on the line and stuff like that. So there are some other problems in there, but they have seemingly worked them out. So reliability is way better. Next slide. Okay. Station boarding data. This is where the really interesting stuff about Worcester and the people getting on in Worcester really comes into play. So as Paul mentioned, the MBTA hired MassInc Polling to do station boarding data. And this is really, really interesting data. And so what they did was they had people show up at the different stations, every station on every line, and have some people on trains, and they counted who was getting on, who was getting off, and how many people stayed on the train between stations. And they did this on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, so this only represents weekday riders from September to November. There's some drawbacks to this. Again, only the weekdays. They probably only counted each day or each train or station once, so they didn't average, 3 different days of departures from Union Station. It might have only been 1 day. And individual trains may have been counted on different days. So there's 28 trains going inbound to Union Station, South Station, too many train station names, going inbound to South Station every day. And so individual trains, like the train that departs Worcester at 4 a.m. might have been counted on a different day than the one that departed at 3 p.m. So there's some discrepancies there. So what we're going to see on the next slide is really only an estimate of what a day might look like. It's a good estimate, I think, but I wouldn't say that, I wouldn't take this as like the necessarily holy grail of like what a day actually might have looked like. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the station boarding data heat map going inbound to South Station. And so it is arranged where it's in the order of the train stops, and then from top to bottom, and then from left to right is the order the trains depart from their originating station. And so each train is compared only to itself. So the colors range from orange to blue, and the orange colors indicate that more passengers got on the train at that station compared to other stations on that particular train, and the blue indicates the opposite. So not many people are getting on at Back Bay to go from Back Bay to South Station. Makes sense. They're only a few minutes away from each other, and you have other options. But if we're looking at this, what we can see is that from the trains that depart from Worcester, not every train departs from Worcester, some start in Framingham. The Worcester station data shows that for almost every single one of those, Worcester has the most passengers getting on the train. So if we're looking at the 508 train, which in fall 2024 left at 7:07, you had 176 passengers getting on at Worcester. If we look at the 5 o'clock train, which actually hits all the stops, all 18, you had 64 people getting on in the morning on that particular train. So there's quite a few people getting on in Worcester, and this I think just demonstrates that inbound, the inbound strength that Worcester has and importance that it has among these 18 stops. Go to the next slide, please. So if we look at the overall numbers, Worcester, if you look at all inbound riders from all stops, including the ones that only left from Framingham and didn't actually go to Worcester, Worcester had the most passengers getting on the train at 15.5%. So 15.5% of all passengers on all 28 trains got on at Worcester, more than any other stop. I believe Framingham was in second place at 10.6%, and then I'm pretty sure Boston Landing is in third. So Boston Landing is a really popular spot as well. But what I think is really impressive here is that at the 6 stops between Worcester and Framingham, including Worcester and Framingham, so Grafton, Westboro, Southboro, and Ashland, nearly 50% of onboardings occurred on these 6 stops. So that's 1/3 of all stops and 50% of onboardings. So there's a lot of demand for the train at these first 6 stops on the line. Go to the next slide, please. If we look at only the morning trains, so those that depart between 4 and 9 a.m., of which only 7 originate in Worcester, Worcester had, again, more onboardings than any other stop during this period, about 13%. Framingham in second at 11.5%, and Boston Landing in third. And again, these first 6 stops make up nearly 50% of the riders getting on for the 4 to 9 a.m. trains. Now, if you talk to the MBTA, the 4 a.m. train is not necessarily, it's not a peak hour train. Most people aren't getting on at 4 a.m., but I included all 10 morning trains as the sample here. On this slide, we can see the percentage of riders just getting on at Worcester or one of the 6 stops for the 7 trains originating in Worcester from 4 a.m. to 9 a.m. Again, Worcester is really strong. Kind of a funny little point here. The one train that has more Framingham riders than Worcester riders is the express train that goes Worcester to Framingham to Boston Landing and doesn't stop anywhere in between. So that express train is the only one that has more riders getting on at Framingham than in Worcester. And I think if you were to look at the time that it leaves, 7:40, it arrives at South Station at 8:45, it's difficult for people to perhaps make that work. I guess I don't know what's in the mind of the people in Framingham getting on at that time, but it is a difficult time for the express. But it is a really interesting example there. Go to the next slide, please. We also decided to look at who is riding the Worcester-Framingham line using the MBTA's passenger survey. So this is the 2023 release. They released the 2024 version, I think this late last summer. And what this shows is it doesn't exactly show you necessarily like individual stations, but the line as a whole. So if we are looking at the Worcester-Framingham line, more than 50% of riders are taking it from home to work, compared to a little less than 50% system-wide. Kind of in the same vein as that, more than 50% report taking it 3 to 5 days per week, with more riders taking it 5 days than 3 to 4. And then 44.8% of riders report making 30 to 80% of AMI, or area median income, and 11.73% make less than 30% of area median income. Now again, the AMI numbers here, that's for the entire line. So the AMI in the Worcester area is going to look a lot different than closer to Boston. I wish we had more detailed information about these numbers, but more than 50% of riders make less than 80% of AMI. I think is still like pretty significant thing to know. The final portion of the report looks at Census Bureau data to try to map ridership by community. And it's important to recognize that census data does lag a little bit. So the latest data that we used in this report was the 2019 to 2023 5-year estimates. Basically, there's not enough data for some of these smaller communities to do like a new estimate every year. So the census uses 5 years of data in order to try to make an estimate here. And so the first map, which we can move to that slide, shows the riders per 1,000 workers, the number of riders per 1,000 workers age 16 and over for the Worcester-Framingham line communities. So the labels on the map are the communities that have direct stops, and then the adjacent community. I went with the MBTA Communities Act definition here of Worcester-Framingham line communities, so the adjacent communities as well. And just as a quick note, the orange lines just indicate that the data there's a really high degree of margin of error in the orange outline communities. But what we see here is that there are about 5.79 riders on the commuter rail line who say they're using it to commute to work primarily from Worcester per 1,000 workers. So it's not a huge amount in the census. It's like something like almost, I forget what the exact number is, but it's close to 800 if you are looking at people who are driving. And this is commuting, this is among all commuters, whether they're going to Boston or not. So that is part of this as well. Not terribly surprising with the number of people who are driving to Boston or driving elsewhere. We talk about this in our next report a little bit, which is forthcoming. I can talk about that at the end. But if you look at, say, the number of cars that passed underneath the tolling gantry in Newton on I-90 in 2024, you had an average of 120,000 cars going 60,000 each way in 2024, each day. So there's a huge number of cars and not as many riders, so there's a big discrepancy here. If we control just for those who say they have a 45-minute or longer commute, it's about 40 riders per 1,000 workers compared to the 5.79 here. 45 minutes, is a very rosy. There's no traffic from Worcester to Boston, but that's the latest, the most amount of time that we have to cut it by in the census data. The next set of maps is focused on transit-oriented development, considering the potential for new riders on the rail depends on residential and job growth within a half-mile to a mile of the train station. And so we mapped this for Worcester to Framingham. And so between 2018 and 2022, the number of working residents within a half mile of Worcester's Union Station grew by an estimated 37%. And the number of jobs did shrink a little bit, and we can talk about that. So if you go to the next slide, this shows, again, I'm sorry the numbers are small here on the map. This shows the inner ring is the half mile, within a half mile of the train stations, and the outer ring is within a mile. And so Worcester from 2018 to 2022 grew from 1,600 working residents to 2,200 within a half mile of Union Station, so that 37% growth. And this is not, of course, counting any of the units that have come online, like Alta on the Row and some of the stuff in Kelly Square, which is within half mile as well, that's come online since 2022. Unfortunately, this data does lag a little bit. I think they either just released or are maybe with the shutdown are soon to release the 2023 numbers, but we'll see how that goes. I imagine it's grown more. And then the next slide shows working residents, and again, that did shrink a little bit between 2018, not working residents, primary jobs. It did shrink a little bit between 2018 and 2022, but I think in this particular data, we're seeing the effects of like remote work and potentially like maybe businesses closing because of COVID or something like that, that we're seeing some of that. So it'd be really interesting to see updated numbers as the years like roll on as well.
Jessica, sorry to interrupt. Could you explain the primary jobs just briefly?
Yeah, so that's, it's just looking at, so the census longitudinal data set for this looks at, has primary jobs and secondary jobs, and I didn't want to overcount the number of, I wanted to try to avoid overcounting 2 jobs there, so I just went with primary jobs only.
Okay, just curious.
So I think that's just like what you would consider your main source of employment to be. And then on our final slide is just the conclusions. Significant number of riders getting on at Worcester with the potential for more. There's a huge potential between Worcester and Framingham with nearly 50% of weekday onboardings. Ensuring that these 6 stops have frequent, speedy, and adequate service is key to the success of the line. And one thing that we tried to stress at the end of the report is that it's not Worcester versus the other communities on the line. Worcester should be working with Ashland, Grafton, Southborough, Westborough, and Framingham to like really increase service on the western edge of the commuter rail line. Boston gets all the goodies. She gets some out here as well on the western part of the line that's so popular, right? Yeah. So we really stress at the end that these communities should work together to advocate for fast-track infrastructure improvements, whether that is more accessible station infrastructure, which does also increase the speed that the train moves if you can get on and off the train much more quickly. For potentially third track in some sections of the line that could enable express service. And then this is a far off dream, but even like electrification of the line would speed up the service. Like it's even, I don't know, exponentially. It's hard to say how much it would increase, but these are the kinds of infrastructure improvements the MBTA should be making on this line, especially as the second most ridden line in the system.
And I'll simply add, we all know here the importance of that service to Worcester's growth, but that's only going to continue. What's not commonly known by a lot of members of the public is that the state's plans for West-East Rail to run theoretically from Pittsfield to Springfield into Boston will come through Union Station and use the Worcester-Framingham line. So there needs to be attention paid to the long-term investments in the line, and I will add, the state has been very good. We all noticed there's been a significant investment in Union Station. That was a $70 million project with the pedestrian bridge and the additional platform work. And there are plans to continue. As Josh made a reference point, we are actively working on a companion report that will be looking at some of the long-term infrastructure investments that the state is making or plans to make, in an effort to really demonstrate the value of those investments. And I think the city's been very visionary in organizing a task force to be there. The legislative delegation's been very good. And there's a lot happening on the state level. I served on a commuter rail vision committee before the pandemic that called for this type of frequent service, like Josh referenced, 30-minute turnarounds. They're actively moving on that now. And they are also moving forward with the commuter rail contract. The renewal process is underway. They have 3 bidders, and that potentially could bring a a perspective on the next cycle of investment and operations on the line. So there is a lot happening on this that's positive. I recognize we all want better service, we all want higher quality, faster service, and we're working hard for it here at the Research Bureau.
Thank you all for that information. I think it's a great report. Really, highlights how the rail line is impacting Worcester and how it's going to be crucial, I think, to Worcester's growth for the future. So I appreciate the report. It's really fascinating information. I'll pause now. I don't know if any of the other members have any questions, but no. Again, thank you for this report. It's really great and good to know. It's great for the public to know as well.
Mr. Chair, thank you for the opportunity, because we are eager to talk about this report, not just with the three of you, but with, I'm sure, the vast members of the public watching at home or later in the online broadcasts.
Thank you.
We've been on quite the speaking tour for this report, so.
Appreciate it too.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. So the survey, I just want to know, how were you guys able to generate this survey? I saw the age range, but how were you able to get so many surveys? And I'm not sure if it said how many surveys were done, but if you can just.
I actually think the number of, so it's the MBTA's own survey that they do, and they used to do it every 3 or 4 years, I think, and now I believe they're trying to do a rolling release every year, and they sample different stations. And I believe that what the MBTA does is they kind of just grab people as they're coming on or off the train to try to ask them some questions. So I'm sure that there are some people are more willing to talk than others about their experiences. I don't think that the number of people was particularly high. I think they interviewed maybe less than 1,000 people total, but they tried to combine several years of data into one to try to make a larger sample. Yeah, it's maybe not the best survey in the world, but it's what we have, unfortunately.
We sometimes have to utilize what data is available, and as Josh explained, like the station boarding data. And I want to be clear, the last set of station boarding data was 2018, which, is pretty much completely useless. I mean, the ridership in 2018 has no bearing whatsoever on what's happening right now. So we could not have done this report without them commissioning the station boarding data in the fall of 2024. That being said, the report tries to be clear, as Josh was, that there are limits to that data. We appreciate the data, but we would have loved to get a deeper set of data to utilize, but we utilized what we had.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, obviously, the data is very important. It just makes me think if there's ways where, we can do some type of Worcester data and stuff like that, some type of surveys, just with people that are onboarding or offboarding here in Worcester, and how do we, look at the data and share it and see if it's similar or if it's not. And again, it's about providing, a better process and opportunities for people to ride. So maybe it's not something we can look into. Sure, through the chair.
Yeah, I think getting more information, looking at the AMI information, for example, looking at the entire line, that doesn't really tell us much about who's riding in Worcester. It'd be great to know. Yeah. What do the people who are how often are people getting on in Worcester? What does their AMI look like? What kind of jobs do they have? That kind of information would be really, really valuable, I think, especially if Worcester is trying to, make its case to the MassDOT and MBTA to make more infrastructure investments or to change fare policies, for example. It's so expensive to park and get on the train, and not everybody can afford that. So having that information will be really, really helpful.
I think through the chair, you won't have any argument from us that a more detailed survey source here in Worcester in particular would be enormously helpful. As the executive director, I have to disclose, we're a very small nonprofit and we don't really have the budget to undertake this survey. You're looking at 50% of the, well, right now we're a staff of 3, so you're looking at 66% of the staff. But what I can say is I think there's a concerted conversation happening at the council level, the state level, this MBTA Worcester task force. So I think that's an interesting idea to bring. Hopefully there's a way to capture that level of data, but we don't have the resources to do it ourselves.
Yeah, maybe we could do it in the form of a chairman's order.
Sure, yeah.
And to see, I don't know how to do the wording on that, but just to identify how do we create our own data to assist each other and everyone in this process.
If you'd be amenable to it, there was one thing I was going to do a chairman's order requesting that the city manager explore the feasibility of creating like a working group between Worcester and the other communities. Maybe that working group, that's something they could work on, like the survey, even though it's a working group with all these communities, maybe within that working group, city manager could work on doing something like that or finding some resources for Worcester Research Bureau to do that.
Yeah.
Would you want to do
Yeah.
it that way? Or?
Does that sound good? I mean, you guys deal with this data all the time. We're trying to make sure we do this all right. So
Through the chair, we're gratified by your interest in trying to get us more additional data. So I think that sounds wise, Josh.
Yeah, yes, I agree. Yeah.
The point of information I can add is, I know I referenced earlier and Josh referenced, we're on quite the speaking tour. We went to Alston. We also went to the 495 Metro West Partnership, which is a regional organization that represents 37 communities, Shrewsbury to Natick. I know it well because I spent 15 years running it before I came to the Bureau. So they have a long history of working on commuter rail issues along the Worcester-Framingham line. By talking to them, we fostered that level of dialogue, and we did a regional briefing ourselves for city and town officials. There continues to be this ongoing dialogue about how do we find commonality. And our report was very specific, as was Josh. We are urging the communities Framingham West to work together. And I think it's great for the Worcester City Council to send that message and support as well. Because I know sometimes it's not the easiest thing to do to work with neighbors, but it is very effective in order to get state funding.
I think we could, I'll do a chairman's order to ask the city manager to find maybe ways to support more local surveys for Worcester riders, for Worcester MBTA riders. That would be great, I think, Claire, if that we could.
Through the chair, yes, I was able to jot down that language. So that would be 2 chairman's orders then, correct?
Yes.
Through the chair, just to be clear, the first one would be to request the city manager explore the feasibility of creating a working group consisting of the 6 communities served between the Worcester-Framingham line for the purpose of advocating for new infrastructure.
Please, yes, that would be great. We could do one of those and then the following one as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
another question, sorry. The 30 for 30, it's interesting. You hear 30 for 30, I'm thinking ESPN. Is that only to Framingham? Is it Worcester to Framingham? Is that what it is? Every half hour, right?
Through the chair, no, it's 30 minutes to Worcester, actually.
I'm sorry?
So it'll be 30-minute frequencies all day, all the way to Worcester.
From,
Every 30 minutes, there'd be a train through the chair, Counselor. It wouldn't be a 30-minute trip. It would be every 30 minutes there would be a train.
every 30 minutes there'd be a train from Worcester?
Yeah, departing from Union Station, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Sorry for the confusion. We didn't mean to suggest they're going to make a 70-minute trip 30 minutes. That would be lovely, though.
Be great.
That's the end goal.
Okay. I think that's all I have right now.
Thank you, Counselor. Yeah, I really appreciate the information again. If Counselor Frizella, no, you're good? Or feel free if you'd like.
To the chair, with all the added apartments going in around the train station, do you know where those people are coming from? Are they people that are obviously can't afford Boston and but want to work and obviously the deployment in and around Boston is attractive for them to be near a train station to take the train in. But I'm just curious where those people you think will be coming from.
So through the chair, we don't have any conclusive data on the source of those residents. I think we all recognize as people observing, I mean, my God, the downtown has changed dramatically in the last 20 years and even 10 with the level of residential growth. The supposition, and I think the assumption many of us are making, is that people are in fact relocating to those sites because they can afford to relocate out here away from higher cost housing as the housing sort of bubble is expanding through Worcester. So that's a presumption a number of us are making, but I cannot conclusively say that. I will add the observation on the ridership on the line post-COVID is interesting because I've been working on the line virtually my whole career, and talking to other observers, there's a widespread theory that a lot of the riders on the Worcester-Framingham line are white-collar professional workers who are commuting to work in high professional settings like Framingham, Westboro, in Boston. And we all know what's happened since 2020 is now the 5-day-a-week commute is not necessarily the same, and instead it can be 2 or 3 days a week. And so I think that is further leading, this is an observation and a theory, but I suspect it is leading to further interest in the residential developments downtown, because if you're not commuting into the city 5 days a week, it's a more palatable decision, right, to do it 2 or 3.
And through the chair, we can have an estimate probably going in future years about the number of people living within a half mile and like whether they're going to Boston or not. Because those maps were made with the census's, they call it the Longitudinal Employer Household Dynamics Program, but it's basically like home to work job flows. And they connect, believe they connect tax data like at the block level. So you can see like where people's primary residence, like which census blocks they live in, which is basically like a city block size. And then like where their employer's primary location is, not necessarily which office building they work in. So if you work at Harvard or something, like it'll just show like downtown Cambridge or whatever, not necessarily like they work in Alston. But so we, as the 2023, 2024 numbers come in, that kind of align more with the people who are living in those areas, we could actually have like a reasonable estimate of, there are 300 people living in this, these few blocks around Union Station that are working in Boston. We don't know how they got there, or where they come from either. But that can give us an estimate at least of the number of people who are actually like commuting from Worcester to Boston, and maybe they're taking the train.
No, again, thank you. It's, seeing the rail contribute to Worcester's growth. I think everyone here, we want to see Worcester grow, but also want to, make sure we work to keep our neighborhood stable and keep people, in our city, in our communities. I know all of us being district councilors are definitely something we're all really committed to, but it's great to see this information and have a better understanding of how the rail is impacting our community. So thank you both. Appreciate it.
Thank you, through the chair, to all of you for this opportunity. And I want to add, for anyone at home, you can get the report online at wrrb.org. So please do go to our website. We've got other resources there on this and plenty of other topics. So thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Oh, Claire, is there anyone online?
Through the chair, there are no residents online at this time.
Good. Awesome. I think with that, I'll move to adjourn.
Through the chair, do you intend to file item 3A?
Yes, I'll make a motion to file item 3A. Sorry, we'll do a roll call.
Councilor Ojeda?
Yes.
Councilor Fasolo?
Yes.
And Chairperson Councilor Bellata?
Yes.
And prior to doing so, I just want to make sure that I did get that approval for, the approval for minutes roll call. So if it's okay with you, I'll take a roll call for approval of minutes.
Sure.
And that is Councilor Ojeda?
Yes.
Councilor Fasolo?
Yes.
And Chairperson Councilor Bellata?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So with that, we'll close the meeting. Thank you.
Through the chair, would you like a roll call for adjourning?
Sure, we'll do a roll call for adjourning. Appreciate it.
Councilor Ojeda?
Yes.
Councilor Fasolo?
Yes.
And Chairperson Councilor Bellata?
Yes, thank you, everyone.